5 years and 30,000 kilometers later, this is my 2007 Land Cruiser Cygnus, one of the finest luxury Land Cruisers ever built. And today, in this episode of MGC, I want to take you guys through why I don't lift my 100 series, why I don't put aftermarket suspension, and why I keep this beautiful Land Cruiser in stock showroom condition as best as I can. Now, the Land Cruiser 100 series is really becoming sort of a modern classic, guys, I must say. And what do I mean by modern classic? I mean retro styling vehicles that are entering 2024 now and, passing their age of 20 years. So the first Land Cruiser 100 series was the 1998 version, which means that here in 2024, we're talking about 26 years of the Land Cruiser 100 series. The Land Cruiser 100 series is finally aging on, guys. It's finally catching on. It's no longer the youngest of vehicles out there. And so it's an amazing thing to see how this vehicle has aged over time and the kind of wear and tear. And why I say it's becoming a modern classic is because this was the last Land Cruiser that had sort of retro styling. It had that timeless design and that retro kind of design, whereas you had the classic silhouette of a station wagon. Now, of course, the FJ62 had the best sort of station wagon design, but the 100 series was the last of the Land Cruisers that kept the long front bonnet and the station wagon design. And that long front bonnet is, of course, because they had to house the wonderful 2UZFE V8 engine, and of course the diesel 1HD FTE that came in the 100 series Land Cruisers. So with the 100 series and like the 80 series, these were the last Land Cruiser models with the long bonnet in the front. And that's something I've always loved, guys. If you've watched the Masai Gaines channel, if you guys have followed my Mercedes-Benz restoration of the W202, you know one of the things I loved about that vehicle was that long front bonnet. And the Mercedes-Benzes of back in the day, with the long front bonnet and then the hood ornament at the front, I really think that is the most classic and the most beautiful sort of retro styling and design. And it's really unfortunate that with the 200 series, with the 300 series, we started to lose that long front bonnet, because with the 200 series they redesigned the front engine bay to be able to really kind of squeeze the accessories in there and make the front bonnet like 20-30% shorter than the 100 series Land Cruiser. It's a great thing. Toyota thought it's great engineering to be able to do that, but in terms of looks, in terms of maintaining that retro classic styling, we absolutely lost it when we moved on to 200 series. So Land Cruiser 100 series is unique in so many aspects. Number one, it featured the first V8 of Toyota. The 2UZFE first pioneered or first premiered in the Land Cruiser 100 series. Now, many of you know the 2UZFE has come to be known as one of the most reliable petrol engines Toyota ever made, one of the most reliable V8 engines, period. Now, the Land Cruiser 100 series in today's Kenyan market, it can range in price quite a bit. It can range in price from $20,000 to even $30,000 for the later models. So there's a big price range also in Land Cruisers, because each model year survives a long period of time, right? As I told you, 100 series Land Cruiser first model came out in 1998, but what I'm sitting in right now is a 2007. So quite a long range in the years, and that's why prices vary a lot, and you really want to go for the later model years, of course. But why I wouldn't lift this particular vehicle, or why I wouldn't upgrade it with an aftermarket suspension, is for a few reasons, guys. Now, number one, you guys know that I really like the Land Cruiser AHC system. AHC is automatic height control. It's a hydraulic system. It features hydraulic struts in combination with globes, which are like basically actuators. They have nitrogen in them, and these hydraulic struts in combination with the globes kind of act as the spring for the vehicle, and then the struts are able to also increase the height or lower the height of the vehicle. So a very dynamic system, a lot of use cases. But I believe what Toyota was trying to do was kind of serve all use cases with this hydraulic system. Now I must admit, it's noble to do that, but the system struggles in some scenarios, and that's why I say something like a 100 series is a jack of all trades, but doesn't do any particular trade exceptionally well. But it will do everything on the spectrum pretty well, but nothing exceptionally well. And that's just the kind of compromise that you have to live with the Land Cruiser 100 series. And that's just the one drawback, and that's why I wouldn't lift or put aftermarket suspension on this vehicle, is because this vehicle, it didn't seem like Toyota when they were designing this suspension system. And I'm not talking about the models only that have AHC, even the models that don't have AHC. You guys have to remember that the Land Cruiser 100 series is unique in one aspect, and that's the aspect that this vehicle uses torsion bars in the front suspension setup. Now, what is a torsion bar, guys? A torsion bar is literally just a piece of metal that can be torqued kind of up and down, and it's able to absorb impact from the road. So it is basically like a coil spring, but in a different packaging and setup. Now, I would still say, of course, coil springs are the most resilient setup for upgrading a vehicle, and coil springs are the best setup for that kind of decision. So we have to look at why Toyota would go with this kind of setup in the 100 series, and we have to just kind of come down to that they did this because they wanted a good balance between ride quality, and that's why they introduced the independent front suspension. They removed the solid axle in the front, so they brought in independent suspension to smoothen the vehicle, and then they wanted to bring a real sense of refinement to the 100 series Land Cruiser, and that they absolutely achieved. When I moved from my 80 series to this 100 series, this 100 series feels very, very refined, you know. It feels much more car-like versus truck-like, and that's what Toyota's kind of mission for this particular generation was. So why I wouldn't lift it is because you have that independent suspension, and because you have the torsion bars. Now, independent suspension is not the biggest issue, but it is tricky when you lift the vehicle because all those control arms, all the CVs, all the angles change. And so if you don't do a diff drop and a bunch of other things, and you keep those angles like that, you're most likely to kind of break a CV axle when you're going off-road. And you guys might have seen this in the Australian videos when the 4x4 24/7 guys go off-road and there's a 200 series rig in that convoy. You might have seen a few broken CV axles on the 200 series rigs, and that's because Toyota designs it that way. The weakest component that's likely to break is the CV. Now, torsion bar is the real limitation here, because all the aftermarket kits for the Land Cruiser 100 series, you will have to change torsion bars, you will have to change control arms, rear control arms, then you'll have to change the rear springs, because in AHC models, the spring in the rear is actually lighter than in non-AHC models. So if you don't change the spring, your vehicle will actually still sit very low. And this is the trickiness of the 100 series Land Cruiser, is trying to maintain the right ride height when you have lifted this Land Cruiser. And some people can say, well, you don't need to lift you don't need to put an aftermarket suspension in your 100 series. Why don't you just crank the torsion bars up, right? Because torsion bar is like a spring and it has some leeway. If you crank it up, your vehicle in the front will actually rise up in height. Now, I must tell you guys, I've done this. As an example, I have cranked my torsion bars up and driven with it for like 2 years, and I must tell you, it is much, much rougher, guys. It's a much rougher setup than the stock setup. So it's not as easy as saying just crank the torsion bars up and you'll be fine. It really ruins the ride quality. And I'm a big fan of the AHC ride quality. I'm even a very big fan of the original 100 series suspension, the one that doesn't have the AHC. It still has the torsion bars, but it's a very robust setup. But when you get into lifting these 100 series Land Cruisers is where you start to add up into issues. So, if you want to upgrade your vehicle, if you want to really mod it up, I would say go for an 80 series or go for a 200 series or go for a 300 series. But 100 series Land Cruiser, if you buy, try to keep it stock and you will have the best experience with your 100 series Land Cruiser. Try to keep this vehicle as stock, as showroom condition as possible, and you will also get the best value for your vehicle. Modded 100 series have tanked in value compared to now showroom condition. You guys have to remember that showroom condition vehicles will always still carry good demand, and that's why keeping the 100 series stock is what ends up making it look like a modern classic, because it has the lines, it has the design language of a classic. Once you start modding it up, totally changes that. But when you keep this kind of vehicle stock, there's just nothing else like it, you know. There's just nothing else like it. And I really like the build quality of the 100 series. I really like the fact that more of the things are manual. You don't have silly electric actuators and more electrics. A quick candid discussion today. Some of you might be looking into Land Cruisers, or some of you might be looking into getting your first Land Cruiser, or getting, you know, take this advice, and also take this advice with a grain of salt. You know, if you don't agree with me, or if you feel you have a 100 series and you have lifted your vehicle and it performs very comfortably, very well, you've not broken any components, and you've got like a 2-inch lift, comment down below, guys, and let me know how you did it, or what kind of suspension you're running. I am curious, but you know, so far my opinion is that these vehicles are best just kept stock, because the stock components also last a good amount of time. And because this generation is running torsion bars, it's best to keep the original equipment, you know. When you have vehicles running coil springs, I would say sure, if you want to do modifications, do them. But anyways, a good old candid discussion about the Land Cruiser 100 series. I do believe these are a modern classic. I do believe these are going to keep gaining value, and that's why you see some of the 200 series values almost dipping below 4 million Kenya shillings, or $30,000 for a 2008 Land Cruiser 200, but a 2007 Land Cruiser 100 in pristine showroom condition will also fetch 4 million, so, or $30,000. So, you know, vehicle prices are all sort of, the answer is it depends. It depends on the condition, it depends on how much that car has been babied. But I'll definitely say, as a modern classic, because of how refined the 100 series is, I can just drive around Nairobi, I can just drive around town over here, go to the gym, do what I need to do, and I feel like I'm in a car. I don't feel like I'm in a truck. And that's the one kind of real benefit of the refinement that the 100 series generation brought over the last generation. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit like, subscribe, comment down below. Welcome to all the brand new subscribers on the Masai Gains channel. Don't miss a beat, and the way to do that is to just be subscribed. I don't ask for a lot. Your subscription means enough to me. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. It's been Masai Gains checking out.